My name is Cristobal Rodriguez. I was born and raised in what I call the jewel of the West in El Paso, Texas. Padres Mexicanos. Proud to be a fronterizo. Currently working here in West Michigan at Western Michigan University as the Associate Provost for Equity-Centered Initiatives. And it really has been a blessing to be part of La Comunidad here in West Michigan. This is my third year in the good work here through Western Michigan. The conversation of my work has always been centered around community, especially as an educator. So for me, it's from the get-go has been, where's our work centered around the community? How are we part of the community? Not just for the sake of the role that I play at Western Michigan University, but also for my own engagement and my own service and research and teaching, and all that I bring always has to be centered around the community. So it's a big part of who I am and how I operate. So it's good to be part of West Michigan. No, but it's been a blessing. It's a blessing to do the work that I do. I always tell folks it's definitely a blessing when you love what you do and are passionate about it and get paid for it. And to do it in a way that is part of the community, it's that additional blessing of our work. So for me, it's connected to not just our identity, but it's also connected and centered with community through our work. If we do our work well, especially in our roles, if we do the work that we reflect as individuals, we engage with community in a way that our influence becomes powerful in transforming lives and transforming generations and transforming families. Through education, that's reflection of a community's hope and aspirations, of a family's hope and aspirations. And we can't do this work in isolation. It can't just exist within our walls at our institution at Western Michigan University. It has to be embraced and in partnership with our comunidades. It has to be in partnership with our community organizations. It has to be in partnership with families, because that's where we'll see the transformational work. But at the end of the day, we're, as public institutions, as public servants, we have to hold ourselves accountable to that good work. So having this award and recognition in West Michigan, especially as a part of the Latino community, means that we're doing our work well and tying the connection and power of our identity to the work we're trying to center with community. So for me, it's a real blessing to be a part of this community. It's a real blessing to serve this community, and this is a wonderful recognition of that impact, and that work is making progress. One of the most fascinating achievements for me in my professional role has been being appointed by President Biden to the White House Commission, particularly on the Presidential Advisory for Educational Equity and Excellence and Economic Opportunity for Hispanics, as a national role, as a national public servant, where we did take an oath. And that's something that carried on until the first day of the current administration, unfortunately. But that work is not just of taking our expertise, our networks from a local, regional, and national to the conversation, but also how does that then shape our work to influence national policy issues, to influence policy implications and considerations? How do we also bridge our communities, our comunidad from West Michigan, from the realities that our educational systems face, to that working conversation at the White House, or to the working conversation in partnership with then Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona, and even in our work there, where we're not only representing our communities, but then bridging to other communities, spending time in Puerto Rico and their educational system, and realizing how does that community and work in Puerto Rico connect back to the work here in West Michigan, as well as the work from a national scope as to how we, at that level, improve access and equal opportunity and economic opportunity for our communities and our families. It was really a powerful experience to be in those spaces, to be with other commissioners and sharing our voices and expertise and the voices of our communities that we represent. And at the end of the day, it really is a proud moment to have had that time and commitment to really be a public servant at the national level. So one of the things that in my research work and expertise is examining how our educational systems at the end of the day, are functioning in a way that are contributing to inequities, where it limits access, it limits overall support resources. And how does that system then take responsibility for improving access and equal opportunity, equal educational opportunity and success ultimately for all communities? That's where my research and expertise comes from. So when you begin to examine how our systems, our K-12 school systems, our higher education systems, our public school systems, our policies, our leadership, how then they influence opportunity, access, and ultimately success for our communities, then you begin to see that we have much work to do and take responsibility for as educators, as community leaders, to ensure that all families have access, that all families have an opportunity to succeed, and at the end of the day have the resources to ensure their success, because it is about generational transformation. The Secretary Miguel Cardona, I appreciated that he was big on reminding folks that public education was about a promise to families, to making sure that they had access to an education, not just an adequate education, but to a quality education. So for our communities to take that sense of responsibility as citizens, to be involved in the education of their children, of their communities, becomes a big sense of priority to ensure that at the end of the day, we are indeed responsible to be involved and to engage in ways that continue to grow and enhance access and success for all families. And so for me, our work is about improving systemically, improving the work in a way that is going to really lead to improved access, improved resources and success, and really get us to that generational transformation that is the promise of a public education, K-12 or higher ed. And that means we all have to pitch in, right? As much as informing what does that look like for the role of parents, informing what does that look like for the role of community leaders, of our organizations, and ensuring that we're doing our part, that we're stepping up our game to ensure that all children, all families have indeed access and achieve success. You know, one of our greatest challenges here in West Michigan is the underrepresentation of educators, of school leaders, university leaders, faculty, professors. And what I mean by underrepresentation is we know, and we've known this for years, that when you have people in these positions, as educators, as leaders, as professors, as faculty, as researchers, as lawyers, doctors, and so on, that having these individuals look like and speak like the communities they serve is very powerful. It has a lasting impact on the success of our communities. So when you get to look at and examine what does that representation look like in West Michigan, we see that there's an extreme underrepresentation of not just teachers, but especially school leaders, university professors, university leaders. And it matters to have folks that look like us and speak like us. We've known that for years. And in all fairness, it's not just West Michigan, it is a national issue. We are more underrepresented than any other group when it comes to graduate and professional schools, meaning who goes to law school, who goes to medical school, who's going on to graduate studies that requires a license to be a school leader. Like, that takes that additional commitment and takes additional efforts for us to ensure that we are providing that access to such opportunities. But when you look at our numbers, when you look at even the impact with programs like the Kalamazoo Promise, and that we're still, even despite that we're funding public education to a certain degree, that we're still missing something, right? We're still not seeing the goals and achievements that we hope to gain. And it is about looking at the system as much as looking at the leadership of these systems. So the more we can acknowledge that, one, that our voices and who we are and our language matters, and having us be represented in these positions, especially in education, really, really matters. And so we have to take those additional steps to ensure how we grow our educators, our school leaders, our educational leaders, and moreover, how we invest in a future that is going to reflect our community to a greater degree at all levels, in all spaces. Having that representation, critically important. And it's something that we need to work on and to be intentional about here in West Michigan, throughout the region. We have to have those conversations and we have to invest in that effort. One of the biggest things that I realized, and I appreciate, some of the many lessons that I learned, particularly from my parents, hardworking immigrant parents from Mexico. And for us, there was always that sacrifice, sacrificio. There was always that hardworking ethic. No matter what we did, we had to put in that effort. And at the same time, lessons like my mother saying, ya hablan el español, van a hablar otro idioma en la escuela. You already speak Spanish, you're going to go speak another language in school, and challenging us, well, more than challenging us, directing us that we had to go pick up another language in school. So we, because of that, I studied German in high school. And my high school German teacher required us to apply to a congressional scholarship that led to me actually going to Germany for a year when I was in high school. For me, those were transformational moments because of that hardworking ethic and commitment and expectations as well. But what we learned is, for me, I was never that 4.0 student with the highest grades and highest test scores, but I worked hard. I believed in myself. I had teachers that believed in me. I had folks that really supported my career and trajectory. So there was always a constant hardworking ethic as a foundation. And you learn at the end of the day that sí se puede. We say this a lot. Yes, we can. Sí se puede. We indeed can. We can achieve these positions as school leaders, as lawyers, as doctors, as university professors or university administrators. We do indeed belong in these spaces. We are the fabric of our national story, of the American story as Latinos. And as children, you have to begin planting those seeds of hope that they do in fact belong and they are indeed part of that national story. And moreover, that sí se puede means like you should be accessing, just like anybody else, those greater opportunities in elementary school, in middle school, 8th grade math, AP courses, things that will get you ready for school. You're very much part of that story and belong in those stories and spaces, right? So to believe that you can't, that you're not smart enough, that you can't compete enough, is part of the system that has led you to believe this false ideas that you're not capable enough, and that's false. I'm always excited when I work with students of all ages, and I begin to plant those seeds to look at themselves in the mirror and say, look, you very much do belong and you very much are part of this space. And moreover, yeah, you can succeed and work hard. We're here to support that. We're here to make sure your success. We just need you to come through the door. Often the challenge, a lot of doors are not as open as they need to be or should be. And that's where some of the work that we're trying to do systemically in both K-12 and higher ed. It goes back to that work on access, right? It goes back to that work on equity efforts to ensure everybody has the resources to succeed. But when students that look like us and speak like us and across all communities believe that they don't belong or they're not smart enough or capable enough, but I say that they're sipping on the wrong juice. They have to begin to believe that yes, they can, and in fact they do and will achieve, and just have to put that first step forward and through the door so that they can ultimately get there. And we see from research, guess what? When you provide that access, our children, our community, our students do in fact succeed. And what we've learned is in fact access is far more important by any measure that will recommend whether they are going to be successful or not. It's all about access. And we know that from research time and time again. You got to open those doors. They have to have the opportunity to succeed because they do rise up and are indeed successful. It's a blessing to have these opportunities to be recognized for the work that reflects being in community, being with community, serving the community, and above all, the kind of work that Vive Michigan does, and especially when it comes to highlighting that we indeed are part of that national narrative, that regional narrative. It's not just about West Michigan. It's about what is happening also nationally. And here in West Michigan, you have leaders, folks who are committed to the success, to the transformation, to what we know is true about our community, that in our community, in our future, in our generations, in our legacies are in fact the solutions to our communities. That when we look at our young children, our youth, that in there are very much the solutions to the communities that we all aspire to achieve and to work on, and to have the work like Vive Michigan to acknowledge and affirm that in fact we are part of the national fabric, that we are indeed part of the region and its success story, that we are indeed part of the future that embraces a community that looks like and speaks like, and at the end of the day really makes tangible contributions to the future of this entire community, is critically important. And it's one of the probably best highlights to have a space where we celebrate community, acknowledge the commitment of others, so that we can continue to pass that good work on. It is ultimately, and I'm reminded this from the late Elijah Cummings, who said, in this space, it's about getting blessed, but it's about passing on those blessings. The work that we all are doing as community leaders and advocates is about blessing those so they can bless others. And that's what this space really celebrates, is that influence. That's influence, right? It's not just about us, it's about planting those seeds that are going to continue to grow and give off new seeds as well. That's the power of this work. That's the power of this celebration, and really it's a blessing to be in celebration with community with such recognitions and such great colleagues and friends.